Rapid.
Now you can go global rapidly. You can listen to us from anywhere in the world at www.rapidfm965.com. Plus, you can get social and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms at Rapid965FM.
965FM.
On WhatsApp, it's 091 60 333 965. Let's talk politics, dynamics, and permutations.
It is a concern that we have for our country, Nigeria. This is beyond partisan politics. It's unfortunate. And these are the kind of people who say they're leaders of this country. What example are they showing as leaders of the country?
Let's keep you abreast with the happenings in the polity.
Nigeria is on drink and on oxygen. And how can we get out of this?
I am an employer of the president. I pay the president's island. I pay the bills of his family. And he must protect me.
Standpoint. The center of all talks of politics.
Standpoint, Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. on Rapid 96.5 FM, Umahia.
Small Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian.
It's another beautiful Wednesday, and of course, it is the 19th day of the month of April, the year of our Lord, 2023, and you are listening to the array of programs on Rapid 96.5 FM, the sound of your city. I am Kamian John, the beloved, also known as the controversial, and as always, I will be having a conversation this morning as we continue to put our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments across Abia State, Southeast Nigeria, and Nigeria at large, with a hope that our conversation will be able to bring forward, one, workable solutions to be able to resolve some of these challenges and issues as faced by Nigeria and Nigerians, and two, shift the paradigm and create a mindset that will naturally move our people and our nation to a greater level. And of course, finally, or thirdly and finally, the need to be able to set an agenda, especially at a time like this, where new administrations are preparing to be sworn in and for them to take over in over 26 states of the Federation, and of course, a new leadership at the national level of our great country, Nigeria. So, today, what are we looking at? It will be the subject of security. Of course, yesterday, we did have a conversation with the doctors who have continued an indefinite strike here in Abia State, a strike that seems to see no end, and with both parties unwilling to shield their swords. But today, we will be looking at the efforts of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration in fighting banditry and kidnapping in Nigeria since 2015 to 2023. Well, President Muhammadu Buhari has declared that his government, since coming to office 8 years ago, has succeeded in achieving milestones in area of national security. The milestones, he stated, include combating terrorism, armed banditry, kidnapping, separatist tendencies, crude oil theft, as well as militancy in the South-South and cyber security. The president, who spoke in Abuja while inaugurating the new office of the National Security Advisor and National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, two state-of-the-art facilities to optimize efforts at addressing evolving security challenges in the country, especially terrorism and violent extremism. Now, according to him, the two world-class facilities will serve as major legacies to provide the incoming administration with infrastructure to effectively coordinate national security and counter-terrorism efforts. President Buhari used the forum to outline significant milestones achieved by his administration on national security. On the threat of terrorism, which was labeled as a major security challenge facing the country when he assumed office in 2015, the president said, and I quote, "I can confidently state here today that we have achieved significant milestones in regarding the major threat and restoring normalcy to most of the hitherto scrutinized areas in the Northeast. These are areas previously occupied by terrorists, having freed and internally displaced persons are voluntarily returning to their homes. This was largely achieved through the valiant efforts of our armed forces and other security agencies in collaboration with our regional and international partners, but above all, the support and cooperation of the Nigerian people. Apart from the degraded threat of terrorism in the Northeast, Buhari also expressed delight that government had curbed series of armed banditry and kidnapping cases in the Northwest and North Central zones of the country. He noted that the criminal acts had emerged as a result of the scattering of Boko Haram in the Northeast and the implosion of Libya in the Maghreb. On separatist agitation, the president noted that agitators in the Southeast and to a much lesser extent the Southwest, who have been experiencing concerns of separatist tendencies, were being checkmated. He said, and I quote again, "Meanwhile, issues of crude oil theft, sea robbery, piracy, and militancy in the South-South are equally being addressed. Most of these threats have transitional linkages, thereby reinforcing the need for regional and international cooperation as critical enablers to enhance our national security," end of quote. On maritime security, President Buhari expressed delight that some key threats within Nigeria's maritime environment, such as piracy, sea robbery, crude oil theft, as well as illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, are being effectively tackled. According to him, between August 2018 and March 2023, over 220 vessels involved in maritime criminality within Nigeria's exclusive economic zone up to the Republic of Togo had been persecuted. He commended the Falcon Eye Maritime Domain Awareness Project, domiciled with the Nigerian Navy and coordinated by ONSA, for providing high-quality real-time intelligence leading to the arrest and prosecution of economic saboteurs. He added that over 87 oil tankers involved in various crude oil product theft had been arrested. Theft of over 3 million barrels of crude oil prevented and 15 million liters of petrol and diesel recovered. Well, these and more will be the subject of our conversation in just a moment.
Celebrating your family and friends has become cheap like a cup of tea, easy as ABC, and rapid like it should be. You can send birthday greetings and goodwill messages on Rapid FM for just 1,000 naira. Other events like weddings, child dedication, housewarmings, religious and government functions go for even less, 500 naira. Now, your loved ones have no excuse not to celebrate you rapidly on your day, because all they have to do is visit our website at www.rapidfm965.com/request or call 07049 220965.
onye nke m cherekwa ka m gwa gị o ebe ọwụ na Konak Foundation efurula ntụtụta n'ahụ ka dịrịrị ọhaneze mma ha ejikọ n'aka ha na ndị Fetcare USA iwetara ọhaneze nke ndị oyibo na-akpọ free medical outreach agwọmọrịa n'efu ewo anya na-eme gị pinyo eso na-akụ gị komkom ị nọ na njikere maka owo agwọm ụmụaka enyimọgwụ nakwa ndị a ga-eme operation n'efu na ndị ọzọ ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya o. Nke a ga-adị site n'ụbọchị 22 ruo na Sọnde ụbọchị 29 nke ọnwa Eprel 2023 na Madonna Hospital, Aba Road, Umuahia, Abia State. Ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya o. Echefukwala na ndị niile a ga-eme ọpreshọn n'efu ga-abịacha na Sọnde ụbọchị 22 maka nnwale site n'elekere 10 nke ụtụtụ ruo okperi n'elekere 12 nke ehihie. Nke a wụkwa free of charge o. Fee ọsị chai ngwa kọtụrụ anyị n'ekwentị na 091-324-44444 ma ọ bụrụ na ị nwere ihe mgbagwoju anya nke ọbụla. Konak Foundation nakwa Fetikia USA ịgbanwe ndụ akwa mgbasị ka ọhaneze.
Make you paint your house with Cyclops. The beauty go last year because Cyclops.
My guy, which kind paint have you used? We go make my house go well.
Now Cyclops paint.
Paint we go make my house shine.
Cyclops paint.
What about paint we go last for plenty years?
Now still Cyclops paint. Cyclops paint. Now we gon get paint when done with both national and international award on top paint matters.
I beg, where them day?
Them 10 nationwide. Cyclops paint get one open get what they call Cyclops satin paint. If dirty touch the paint, you will use water and soap take clean and cha-cha. Cyclops paint get other ones like emulsion paint, test coat, gloss, sack flash car paint, matte, industrial marine coating, red oxide primer, aluminium, screening paint, auto varnish, and other barbarous products. For that correct building paint where you need na Cyclops paint. Their price na shipping. For more information, call
0701 855 2224.
Let's talk politics, dynamics, and permutations.
It is a concern that we have for our country, Nigeria. This is beyond partisan politics. It's unfortunate. And these are the kind of people who say they are leaders of this country. What example are they showing as leaders of the country?
Let's keep you abreast with the happenings in the polity.
Nigeria is on drink and on oxygen. And how can we get out of this?
I am an employer of the president. I pay the president's salary. I pay the bills of the family. And he must protect me.
Standpoint. The center of all talks of politics.
Standpoint, Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. on Rapid 96.5 FM, Umuahia.
More Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian.
All right, thanks for joining us and on this edition of Standpoint on Rapid 96.5 FM. I am Nkamian John, the beloved, also known as the controversial, and today we will be talking about security, especially with special focus at looking at the efforts of the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration in fighting banditry, kidnapping, and a whole lot of other vices in Nigeria since 2015 to 2023. And joining me to have this conversation this morning is Alfred Onogbo, a security expert, and together we will be x-raying the efforts of the current administration as far as the subject of security is concerned. Good morning, Alfred. Hello, good morning, Alfred. Hello, good morning, Alfred.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to have you join us on this edition of the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. President Muhammadu Buhari has vowed to, has said that his administration has achieved considerable results in its fight against insecurity in Nigeria. Let's not forget, in 2015, the fulcrum of his administration was the fact that he was going to decimate the Boko Haram, who were a major threat in the northeastern part of Nigeria. And over the years, we've seen other security a Hydra security situation, if I might put it in that way, where we've seen banditry, we've seen kidnapping, we've seen all kinds of agitations, even separatist attempts during his close to 8 years in office. But he says he has done well in quelling most of these security issues. How do you agree with Mr. President?
Well, if I were a politician, I guess I would affirm that he was being right, because you either get rewarded for political correctness or victimized for political incorrectness. And to me, yes, he's the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The duty and task of ensuring safety of lives and properties are constitutionally vested on him. And a layman's assessment would tell you that Nigerians are uncomfortable with the present state of insecurity in the land. But then, for the politician, if you can't praise him, he will praise himself. So that's the position. Again, it also depends on the perspective from which we look at the word security.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you that, are we better off than when he came into office in 2015? Let's not forget, under the administration of then President Goodluck Jonathan, the country seemed to be at war. We had bombs exploding all across the country. The fear was so much. But between 2015 and now, are we in that same state of insecurity as compared to where we are now?
The truth is that the threat level in this country has been upgraded.
Okay.
Only an honest and courageous analyst will tell you that we've not fared better under the present administration. Now, I'm not thinking that it is the exclusive failure of Mr. President as a person, but I think also there's an institutional collapse.
Okay.
There's also the burden of productivity that did not yield anticipated results, which is coming from not just the politicians, but also establishments, the Nigerian security system, and also the Nigerians in general. And like I would always say, there can be no criminal without a community. They must interface with people. And if we see fighting insecurity as the exclusive duty of the government, that will be a recipe for anarchy, because the government only authorizes certain actions. But the task of making sure that our lives and properties are secure is vested on each and every one of us by the Constitution. So, but the role the government plays, which is providing the enabling environment, equipping the establishments or institutions which the Constitution of the country have vested with such powers, seems not to have been realized. So it's difficult to place a score on what they have done, but it's not difficult to state clearly that the height of insecurity has never been this high proportionately in the history of Nigerian nation.
Okay. Now, being a retired military general, President Buhari, of course, took office as a fourth military man to take charge of this nation, and became the fulcrum of his administration was that he was going to nip security in the bud. Now, Nigerians anticipated that, because being a retired military general, he understood the workings of the military, and he would be able to marshal out a plan that would completely turn around the security apparatus of the nation and once again secure the borders of this great nation. But he himself has come out to, in some ways, condemn the handling of by the military of the fight against Boko Haram and other forms of insurgency. Isn't that counterproductive, or wasn't that counterproductive?
Well, let me put on record that President Obasanjo was a retired military general and elected into office by Nigerians before President Muhammadu Buhari. So, and in President Obasanjo's tenure, we saw, these signs that all wasn't looking well with the introduction of religious laws in some parts of the country, and also the agitations, ethnic militias, agitations for self-actualization and all, all that. But, flip forward to President Buhari's tenure. I guess that the challenge he might or probably may have had should be coming from those he gave the assignments, and the nature of supervision being given to those assigned to do certain assignments, to certain jobs. I guess the quality and content of those individuals, and also the political will. Do not forget that he's a politician. And most times, people step down on some very crucial, critical security decisions, depending on the interests involved. There are lots of insinuations about sentiments and interests that are being served either for or against the fight against these insurgencies. No. You can't rule that out.
Yeah. Now, does that interest suggest why Mr. President refused, despite several appeals, employing him to ask for assistance from the United States and other developed military economies to support Nigeria in the fight against insurgency? Let's not forget, the Global Terrorist Index 2019 ranked Nigeria as the third worst nation prone to terrorism, with no improvement since 2017, which is under the Buhari administration. Aside insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, and separatism, pushing Nigeria towards the brink of collapse, with many calling, at some point in time, calling for the president's resignation. What interest was he trying to serve? With not least, learning and a listening ear to those who were suggesting that, look, if we have a problem that is bigger than us, shouldn't we call on friends, partners outside and outside the region and within the region to support our fight against insurgency?
Well, these interests, because some of those are speculations, they are not verifiable. We can only, like I said, we can only speculate. We are not part of his decision-making body. We are not part of the policy makers nor implementers. But obviously, the body language of the president leaves people with those opinions about his interests or otherwise. One would expect that the insecurity of the entire nation should be the primary objective of any government, to make sure that they secure the space. For instance, investment, economic growth, socio-political activities, and all these other activities are vested purely on the state of security of the nation. If you don't have security, I see no place for any investor to come in to put his money and say he wants to grow his wealth in our environment. So if we do not have security, and this is why I feel it should have come as the priority of the government, that to secure the place, they should have consulted with stakeholders who probably would have been able to advise and do some opinions on how to go about checking the state of the growth of insecurity in the land. So I see Mr. President either being handicapped by this speculated interest or totally oblivious of what to do. If he had the capacity, I believe he would have been able to deliver. When he was coming into government, when he was asking for the mandate of Nigerians, one of the promises he made to Nigerians was that he would end insurgency within a very short time. Now, 7 years after, we are still entrenched in the same insurgency. Some areas are said to be totally under the control of some of the terrorists. Some areas are said to be, like I said, governments have not verified or established that these are correct information. So, that's why I say we can only speculate based on disclosed sources of information that Nigerians are paying tax in some places to bandits and terrorists, or they are being extorted by these people at will. You wouldn't call that security. You cannot go to farm. Agricultural activities have suffered immensely. The education sector has suffered. Of course, health services in those areas will be near zero because if the space is not safe, nobody will venture. So I do not want to agree that he has been able to take on these things. And you find that in some areas too, when there are hitches, the speed at which they deploy response shows you that they have the capacity to contain any excesses. So how come it doesn't go round? That's what makes everybody wonder. Are we particular about certain interests or otherwise? So one would expect that as the president under oath, who vowed to protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria, no area should be spared the direct control of the Nigerian security services.
Okay, it sounds as if there hasn't been any success in terms of the fight against insurgency and improving Nigeria's security architecture. But upon resumption of office in 2015, Mr. President relocated the military command from Abuja to Maiduguri, the birthplace of Boko Haram. He improved the military budget and approved the purchase of arms for the security forces and agencies. Also based on his promise to also end corruption, the president began a probe of the use of military funds under the previous administration of President Goodluck Jonathan. As part of that process, he ordered the arrest of the former National Security Advisor, Sambo Dasuki, over the alleged embezzlement of $2 billion or nearly 650 billion naira allocated for arms purchase. Are these not successes that should be attributed to the Buhari administration?
Well, I'm not a critic of Mr. President, but the pertinent question I would like to ask is what were the outcomes of those probes? Have these guys been found guilty and sentenced appropriately? Have they returned the money? Was it the NSA alone that stole the money if he was found guilty? Have the stealing stopped? So, sometimes, politicians will put up a show just to justify their occupation of the office. The end should be able to justify the means, not just that we start a process that serves media interest and gives us mention in the public space. Secondly, we live in an artificial intelligence age, and I believe that there are so many ideas and proposals which are affordable by Nigeria to acquire technologies that can help us reduce the capacity of crime and criminals in this country. In the recent past, we did the national identification and then we were compelled to register our SIMs and all that. Now, we should have seen a central database that provides the intelligentsia a platform for profiling everybody within the Nigerian space. Through this, you can easily detect the move of group of people in any location that are of interest to security. There are other technologies, drones that are not manned, unmanned aerial drones. There are other artificial intelligence platforms and devices that could have been most effective in containing these organized crimes. But we are far from seeing that happen. And even where they exist, they are not deployed with the zeal of a leadership that is intent on ending criminality, insurgency, and even corruption. Look at the banks. Nobody thinks about the role the banks are playing in fueling insecurity, funding insurgency, and all that. And there are possibilities that if critical assessments are made of these establishments, we might begin to close in on those who are perpetrating these crimes. So there are lots to do. My background is criminal intelligence and forensic investigations, and I know that we have the know-how, probably not the technical capabilities, but at least we know we have our heads right. We have people who can give ideas to government, the states, and some other internal measures also that should have been put in place to control the surge and development of certain criminals that become threats to national interest. I do not see that happening in a hurry because politicians want to win the next election. So most times they mortgage the interest of the entire nation to service their personal gains. And that is very worrisome.
Yeah, but there were some gains made in the recovery of lost territories, with the government repeatedly claiming it had recorded technical defeat over the terror group, talking about Boko Haram. But this was short-lived. Boko Haram split in 2016, leading to a splinter group called Islamic State West Africa, ISIS West Africa, heralding a new dawn of terror. Really, was it worth spending the $1 billion that Mr. President went to the National Assembly and to get approval to pull out money from the Essex Screwed account to be able to fund new equipments for the Nigerian military? Some say that probably the Nigerian military and security agencies have never had it so good as they've had it under this administration. I don't know if you agree.
I am skeptical. I will say this to you. I'm being careful. I don't want to be seen as anti-government. I believe they are making efforts within their capabilities.
Yes.
But let me tell you the truth. You cannot spend $1 billion to fund a project and not see the effects. The question, morally speaking now, will be, yes, 1 billion was secured, approval for 1 billion was secured. Was 1 billion actually spent? And if it was spent, was it spent properly? Was it spent on the appropriate tools and equipment that would have helped our military and other agencies to fight and win the bandits and insurgency? These are questions that probably someday, sometime in future, somebody in leadership will be able to provide answers to. What happens here is that Nigerians are told what the people in government, politicians, intend to do. What we do not see is how they did it. We go home with they said, and they budgeted, they got approval, they did this. Do we have people with that moral boundaries that says this money was designated for this, let's use it for the best, let's achieve the most with the little we have? I think that is a question, and that's why we keep talking about corruption. Most people who are public officers, employees paid with taxpayers' money, are billionaires. I've never seen anywhere in the world where a public officer becomes a billionaire by serving the public. You are supposed to be either poorer or just average. Nobody wishes poverty, because the idea of your service is to make life better for everybody, which includes yourself. If you appropriate fund for roads and we build the right quality of roads, you will drive on that road with every other Nigerian, irrespective of the fact that you were the one that signed the contract. And you will not be in that office forever. Your children, your great-grandchildren might never be in that office till they die. So the challenge I think I have in conceding to what we were told is that, yes, 1 billion was budgeted, 1 billion approval was obtained from the National Assembly, but was 1 billion spent? Were the items, the equipment purchased worth $1 billion? Those are questions, probably we'll find time to answer them another day. But I'm just being objective.
Because in the last 5 years, under President Buhari, the defense budget has continued to be high, with about 878.4 billion naira and 840.56 billion naira earmarked for the military in 2020 and 2021 respectively. Yet the performance of the military remains poor, so one begins to wonder what accounts for the mismatch of funding and effectiveness, because it looks as if we were hoping that money will be able to fight the war for us. Was that a wrong assumption on the part of this administration, thinking that they could pump in more money in a hope to buy further equipment to arm the security forces? Or was it more a wrong approach? Because some school of thought have suggested that where we should have paid particular focus should have been in intelligence gathering, and you have also suggested the deployment of technology.
Well, I will say we have multiple reasons why things have not why the anticipated results have not been achieved. One, if you spend money on equipment and the soldiers and men that engage these bandits are not highly motivated, properly trained, and equipped, you have signed in for a defeat. What is the morale of our men on ground? What kind of motivations do they enjoy? What are the social benefits, social welfare benefits, not only for those in service, but also the families of those who have paid the ultimate price? You know, there must be incentives to drive the commitment of the Nigerian security agencies. Their rank and file live in the most pitiable states and conditions. Allowances probably are not even paid as and when due. I'm sure they do try to pay them. So there are lots that one would expect should go to motivating the men, training, expose them to new ideas, technologies, train them, make them to own what they're doing, make them to believe in the country. We should give every Nigerian the opportunity, who have the opportunity to be in the service, to feel like they are really Nigerians, and ensure that cancers or infections like ethno-religious bias is not tolerated in the service. If certain people feel that they are preferred, more than others, you will never see commitment and dedication. You cannot. Bible said something that a house that is divided against itself can never stand.
Yes.
So if we go with a broken guitar to a musical concert, you will have a broken musical concert, of course. You don't sacrifice a dog to the spirits and expect that they will reward you with cows. So I want to believe that if the Nigerian security establishments could be a bit dressed up so that patriotism drives them. They see Nigeria as their project. They do not feel like strangers within themselves. You don't have any bias of ethnic or religious considerations. You are treated on merit. You don't have to say this man is from East, West, North. These are cankerworms that have eaten deep into most services. I don't want to be particular, but it's a norm. We know it because we have friends, we have relations, we've been in services, we know experiences that have, exposed certain things. And sometimes some decisions are made with these ethno-religious considerations. So you will not achieve your best under such an environment. But if they jettison these things, develop the capacity of the men and rank and file, I can tell you that they will take on these guys and rout them out. It will take us nothing to secure the space of the Nigerian nation, because they will see it as a duty they owe to the entire nation, and they prove that they are patriotic Nigerians. They will not just be soldiers because they are paid salaries. They will be soldiers because they vowed to ensure that the territories of Nigeria are in safe and orderly hands.
Okay, let's look at negotiating with some of these terror groups. Now, globally, the dilemma of fighting insurgency, militant groups or bandits have been either to fight them to the finish or to engage them in some talks and negotiations towards amicable settlement. Now, President Buhari in March of 2018 announced that his government was ready to accept the unconditional lay down of arms by any member of the Boko Haram group who shows strong commitment in this regard. Was that a good move? Because let's not forget, under President Yar'Adua, we had the amnesty deal with Niger Delta militants aimed at reducing unrest in the oil-rich region, and then President Muhammadu Buhari also extending an olive branch to members of Boko Haram who were willing to lay down their arms.
Well, the price of leadership is in being able to interpret steps that you should take to ensure that safety and prosperity is guaranteed. I think it wasn't a wrong step. My concern will be that what exactly are the interests or demands of Boko Haram? If they are asking for something legitimately, they should be able to get with a constitutional review or provided for in the constitution, it will be understandable. Now, I don't think any Nigerian can tell us exactly what are the national interests that are being denied the Boko Haram sect or movement. They are not asking for education to be extended to their people. They are not asking for agricultural support for farmers. They are not asking for medical services to be improved. What are they looking for? They are asking for an Islamic state in a secular country called Nigeria. The Constitution of Nigeria vests the status of secularity on Nigeria. So on what grounds will the government be negotiating with any sect? Just like the agitations of Biafra, I would say, you are asking for a Biafran state. Now, you must be able to establish that these and these and these are areas you feel you are not being accommodated in the present arrangement. Then you can be, there can be a meeting point as, okay, let us look at it. And I think that's why we have elections. That's why we have a parliament. We elect people who should be able to speak for us, to go to where issues concerning different constituencies, federal and state, are discussed. And then the policy makers will put up a position, give to the government that when we do this, the country will be better for all. If that is the situation, then the president's olive branch will work. But if that's not what these people are looking for, and they are simply interested in establishing anti-constitutional dynasties, certainly there might never be a meeting point. So the amnesty, if any, is granted to them. It's just like caressing a dead body hoping it will get up and walk again. So I see a difference between what was done under Yaradua and what the present Boko Haram agitation and bandits are doing. The bandits are just pure criminals. You don't have to negotiate with criminals. Their intentions, their motives, their objectives are antisocial, anti-government, anti-people.
Yeah, but we saw a number of state governors, Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari, for instance, Sokoto State Governor, actually going into negotiations with some of these bandits.
And you will also see that they've achieved nothing. Because a thief does not understand the language of peace. If you catch him, try him and jail him. Now, you cannot also be negotiating with criminals who among whom those who have been apprehended have never been thoroughly dealt with and tried and punished. You are reintegrating them under the assumption that, yes, you believe they said they have changed and turned the leaf. But we have seen over and over again the same people regrouping with their sects and their groups to perpetrate more terrible crimes in the country. So I feel that, yes, if we apprehend these people, let the law take its course. Now, while they are sentenced, while they are in prison, you can now consider pardon for them. You can now consider watching their behavior while in incarceration or under observation. You'll be able to determine whether there is any iota of repentance, or is it just a show they are putting up, or another political game being played on our heads, So there are too many questions, and there's need for the government to be transparent. A lot of things I know come under certain codes in security and management of public threats. But there are times that some of those things are exposed, even from inside. The system is so porous, discrete information are passed to the public. You open up the social media, you see restricted documents, you see privileged information that shouldn't be in public purview circulating freely. So we need to look at these things, tighten up the security apparatus, and ensure that we tell the Nigerian people the truth whenever they must hear from the government, and Nigerians will begin to see their role in making sure that we have a safe and peaceful society.
All right, Alfred. Time not really. We've said so much. We've tried as much as we can to dissect the current administration's approach to dealing with security issues. But what about the incoming administration? What would be your professional word of advice on how they are to tackle the existing challenges as it has to do with the country's security apparatus?
I would strongly appeal that the welfare of security men be given priority. You can never assign a sick man for a wrestling contest. I don't know how they are expected to perform. When someone is hungry, you don't expect him to, cut down an Iroko tree with one strike of an axe. So the challenge before the security agencies are enormous, and they need a sound mind. They need a healthy hope. They need a very strong assurance of a better life for what they are doing for the nation to go into it. They must be prepared emotionally. They must be prepared socially. They must be prepared financially. The incentives must be high because the threats are too high. So you don't expect them with just coercive voices of commands to go and achieve a miracle. No, it will not happen. So I hope that the incoming administration will be able to humbly consult with stakeholders, consult with those who can give them honest opinions and suggestions on the way to go about tackling the insecurity. That's one. Two, we are also exposed at this moment to very severe mental health situations across the country. Now, you don't assign a lunatic to sit over people as a judge. You cannot join or enter a bus driven by a madman.
True.
Will certainly not arrive at your destination. We need to reassess the mental health status of most people that are found in leadership, so that when they are leading, we can comfortably and confidently follow. And then the third thing, the Nigerian Constitution needs to review the status of the state governors. 90% of the conflicts and the problems we are having in this country are created by the individuals who usurp the office or who acquire mandates to become governors of our states. Because there is nobody living in a space called federal government.
True.
We all reside in states, local governments, and towns and villages. So when the administrations at the state level are unprepared or ill-equipped, and their vision is misdirected, we will certainly make no progress. Because whatever good ideas exist, they will kill it. Whatever honest people are around, they will avoid them, and they are not accountable. So we should make the offices of the governors very accountable to the people and to the law, and ensure that people don't get into such offices through just any cheap means. Those are my views. If we do that, the next administration will be scoring a good mark for themselves. But that does not exclude the fact that we should ensure that those who are coming in to lead us must be competent, they should have character, they should have capacity, and they must have integrity. If we are lacking in these things, we are just recycling crime, we are just encouraging and endorsing illegalities and all kinds of disorderly and lawless conduct in our society, and people will continue to act with impunity, and they will not be accountable to the people they usurped their mandate.
Well, thank you so much, Alfred Ononugbo, security expert. Together, we have been looking at the efforts of the President Buhari-led administration in fighting banditry, kidnapping, and the subject of insecurity in Nigeria since 2015 to 2023. We hope that when next we call upon you, you will grant us the pleasure of your company on another edition of Standpoint.
Thank you. I'll be glad to open my door.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
God bless you. Thank you. Bye.
Bless you too. Right, and there you have it. A quick look at how it's been security-wise for Nigeria under the Buhari-led administration. Of course, time quickly running out on us. We will bring you another edition of Standpoint tomorrow, 10 to 11. And don't forget, during the month of May, every Monday will be Standpoint special edition, special focus on a review of the Victor Ikpeazu administration in Abia State. All that in the month of May. Well, I am Nkamian John, the beloved, also known as the controversial, signing out. At the top of the hour, it's Newslight. Do stay with us.
Trending stories, breaking news, fast. Newslight on Rapid 96.5 FM.
Aviation Workers Union yesterday warned of an impending indefinite strike action if the authorities fail to resolve the nagging non-implementation of condition of service and other welfare-related issues